Good morning, friends. Ann here. Got my cup of coffee, got the Word of God, and today's reading is John chapter 7, the whole chapter. I hope you'll read it, but today we're going to focus on just the beginning part of this chapter because it has something very important to teach us. So starting with verse 1, after this, Jesus traveled around Galilee. So after what? Many of his disciples had left him, had deserted him. He was claiming to be the bread of life and saying that people must eat his flesh and drink his blood. And people were like, this is too crazy for me. So some of the people just turned on him and deserted him. So after this, Jesus traveled around Galilee. He wanted to stay out of Judea where the Jewish leaders were plotting his death. But soon it was time for the Jewish festival of shelters, and Jesus' brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea where your followers can see your miracles. You can't become famous if you hide like this. If you can do such wonderful things, show yourself to the world." For even his brothers didn't believe in him. Friends, Jesus's own family, his own brothers hadn't really figured out who he was yet. Can you imagine that Jesus was a part of a family, that he had brothers, and Matthew tells us he even had sisters that were raised with him? Can you imagine what it would be like to see Jesus growing up as your brother or your sister? Always knowing that Jesus was perfect, that he never did anything wrong. You could never blame anything on Jesus as your brother because you would be the one that was wrong and not Jesus. Friends, I just think it's so interesting that Jesus's family, the ones closest to him, the ones who knew him well, the ones who were able to see what he could do firsthand, still didn't understand who he was. And what they were doing here is they were encouraging him, look, if you are who you say you are, if you can do all of these amazing things, stop hiding on the roads and the streets of Galilee and go out there and show yourself. Go prove yourself. So many people thought that the Messiah would be one who would outwardly show and proclaim all of this power, all of this magnificence, that they would be able to see just this vast display of glory and miracles, and that Jesus, that the Messiah, would be the one to wow the world. And friends, Jesus was not that kind of Messiah at all. And Jesus's brothers were wanting him to go make himself known to the Jewish leaders at this festival, so you can make yourself known and prove that you are who you say you are. But Jesus knew that God's will has a weight. And he said to them, now is not the right time for me to go, but you can go anytime. The world can't hate you, but it does hate me because I accuse it of doing evil. You go on. I'm not going to this festival because my time has not yet come. After saying these things, Jesus remained in Galilee. And we read on in John chapter 7 that eventually he did go, but he went undercover. He didn't go to publicly proclaim his power. He went undercover because he knew that God's will has a weight. And Jesus was waiting on that right time to reveal himself to the world. Friends, a lot of us talk about, as believers, we want to do God's will. We want to be in the center of God's will, but we want God's will now, and we want it to happen right now. We want to know what's going to happen, and we want it to happen right now. Friends, I want you to take Jesus's advice, to follow his example. God's will was what was guiding Jesus. Jesus was in the center of God's will, but he knew that God's will has a weight. Do you know that in your life? Are you willing to wait on the right time so that God's will can be done? Friends, don't forget that God's will has a weight, and it's time to wait. Have a good day.